You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What up, Cal fans? We are back with a very special episode, Golden Tweets. Tweet, tweet. This, of course, is the Golden Bearcast, proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Andy. Alongside me is Rob. We have a handful of tweets that we are going to run through tonight. It's going to be a quick hitting episode as we are closing down and saying goodbye to the interesting, fascinating, wonderful, confusing, perplexing, up and down season that was Cal football of 2024 regular season as we wait in anticipation of the bowl game next week. Hey, also, fun fact, Jack Plummer liked your tweet for the Golden Tweets.
Yeah, it's not actually Jack Plummer. It's a dude whose account is Jack Plummer.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a little less fun. All right,
Yeah.
Kicking it off. Who else? Who else but Sid? Sid, you know, you have been with us this whole season, and we have so much gratitude for that. So thank you for always.
What I need a side question. Have we figured out if that was Sid that you saw? Have we still not figured that out?
No, we haven't figured it out. It's
Oh,
going in.
God.
It's a mystery still.
Oh.
It's a mystery still.
Eighth wonder of the world, I guess.
But Sid has asked, besides the OL, what other area does Justin Wilcox need to focus on for next season?
Ooh, that's actually a good question.
Rob?
If we're looking at just the roster composition and we know who, let's say no one else leaves and we're just looking at the roster that we have and we have to fill in the slots of all the guys that have left or graduated, I'd say the defensive backs for sure. We're basically replacing the entire back line. And then also defensive line's not as big of an issue. Edge, I don't think is as big of an issue as people are making it out to be. I think we definitely will get some guys, some top heavy guys into the portal from that position. But I think the other spot I think that's we really need is the other inside linebacker spot next to Cade.
Yep.
That's going to be the big one.
I feel like that's the easiest position to recruit for, though, because you know you're going to be featured so well in the Wilcox defense.
Yeah.
So I'm actually, I agree. It's the biggest position of need, but it's the one I'm least worried about.
Yeah.
I think actually, like, I am in support of turning over the defensive, more of the defensive staff. So I have a somewhat of a controversial take, and I guess I've saved it for the Golden Tweets, but I have been a little bit let down by Wilcox's hiring of the most important assistant coaches always being white dudes. I know it's just like, but like,
That's not the way I expected that sentence to end. At all. At all. I'm just as shocked as you listeners. I'm just as shocked.
I told you it was good.
I didn't think it was going to be that type of controversial. I thought it was just going to be a controversial of like, I think that we should fire everyone on the defensive side and rehire everybody. Like, I thought that was like that type of controversial.
No.
I'm like I'm up to a loss here.
I feel like GA hinted at that online, and
Oh, God.
I didn't think of it that much at the time. It's like a couple of years ago, and I'm just saying, man, like when you look at the history of hires there, it's kind of weird. I mean,
ultimately, this is what's going to get us canceled.
yeah.
This
Anyways,
is what's going to get our podcast canceled.
DeRuyter, Sermon, Musgrave.
Well, there was in between there Keith Hayward,
True.
co-DC.
Co-DC. Yeah. Well,
So
anyways.
your point's moot now.
one underrepresented candidate.
Yeah.
amongst-
Out of 3. So,
Well,
33%.
I don't know. I think it's nonetheless. I think it's time for a change.
I just want some fresh ideas. I think I talked to Peter about this. Like, I just want some fresh ideas on defense.
Dude, I miss the DeRuyter defense. Whether it was GA that was doing the disguises or just DeRuyter, I miss it. I miss it so much because it was just way more fun to watch. And I think that the Sermon defense has had highs, it's had lows, it's had mid. It's been more mid than I think anything else. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, it's not as fun as the disguises, the blitzes, because, and like to your point previously, we have to find a way to get pressure in order for us to look our best. And it shouldn't have to come at the cost of burning out our defense. So I've completely taken Sid's question to a very different place, but that's
you
the
took
piece
it to
for
Mars. I don't know how we're coming back from that.
That's the piece for me that I think I would really look on that, because we've given Wilcox a ton of grace on the defensive side of the ball because he's a defensive minded head coach. I don't know. There's something about this season where it really didn't feel like the defense got better at the end. It felt like we finished worse, and then we're turning over. And like that was with so much experience. So it's really hard to step back from that and then say, great, you're going to turn over so many players on the defensive side of the football and then expect them to have, a better performance. I just think that's a huge focus area of next season. And I would love if we had a far and wide and diverse group of candidates that we would consider for that.
Defensive line, offensive line, probably the biggest. Like that's the easy answer, just because of we saw what SMU did this year by shoring up both sides of the line and how far it took them. And I think there was a thing in the ACC championship game. They asked Rhett Lashley like who he talked to. Who was it? So the commentators were saying they were talking to Rhett Lashley, and Rhett Lashley said that he talked to this other coach and was like, going up to the P5 level, like, what's the one thing that I should, try and do? And he's like, you need to establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball because of the types of bodies and guys that those guys have on other Power 5 teams. That's where you're going to lose most of your battles. The size difference and talent difference is huge. So that's where you need to attack in order to stay competitive across the board. That's exactly what they did. So I feel like, Wilcox said that, right? I think right after the big game, or, right before SMU, we're going to be very active and aggressive in the portal. And I think the question was kind of alluding to offensive linemen and defensive linemen. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Next one from Meh. That was the worst performance by a Cal quarterback that I can remember ever, meaning Rodgers. Are we supposed to believe that in competition, the competition in camp was close? If Wilcox thinks that dude is close to Nando, it's a fireable offense.
If you're like me, you're looking for an edge for sports betting. So when I heard Masterclass had a new class on beating the odds, taught by the pros who have made millions, I had to check it out. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. Novice bettors are at a huge disadvantage, with most losing early and fast. Before, the knowledge needed to level up was hard to come by. Now there's Masterclass, and the classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. I use it, and you should too. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. And Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Blue Wire for their current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Blue Wire. That's masterclass.com/Blue Wire. And remember, all sports betting involves risk, and you're responsible for complying with all sports betting laws in your jurisdiction.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
I love this because it's also very pointed at you.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, Rob, it's important that you express what you saw because no one gets this stuff until you see it. It's just a constant thing. It's not even an online thing. It's just
The backup, the lure of the backup.
Right? It's the lure of the backup, but it's also this idea of like, it goes both ways. So this idea that, the backup must either be better or the backup must be terrible because of how they look, or the starter must, it must have been, or the coaches must have been bad at evaluation because somebody looks bad during a game.
Yeah. So the thing is like in camp, the reason it was close, like looking back at it now, is the offensive line was still being shifted left and right. Like, they were mixing guys in with the first and seconds. Wide receiver groups were being mixed and matched with the first and seconds. And Nando definitely had growing pains in spring ball and fall camp. That's just like that's the real reason. Like he had growing issues because he'd only started 6 games last year. And, going into this year, like, I don't think any of us were upset with bringing in a guy like Rodgers because, Andy, you and I both agreed, like, the process was right. You bring in a guy that's going to push Nando and either overtake him as the starter because Nando is not going to be ready yet, or Nando rises to the challenge and improves to be able to take that starting role. We couldn't say that his last 6 games performance of last year was going to be was it going to be just a data point, or was it going to be a significant inflection point of his playing career? Mm-hmm. It ended up being an inflection point of his playing career. But at that time, you just don't know. And from a program building standpoint, it's the right move to make to bring in a guy like that to shore up that room drops off. People have been talking about this all the time, and tweeting me about it. I'm like, look, let's look at the opposite end. Let's say we didn't bring in a guy like Rodgers, and like we had a significant drop off at the quarterback position after Nando, and Nando doesn't have the season we have this year, right? Let's say he just has a terrible season this year. At some point, someone's going to start to argue, why didn't we bring in another quarterback? So, like, it's a lose-lose situation in that regard. So I think what I saw was 2 guys competing for a job. Ultimately, the guy who was here won it out, and that's easily it. And the thing with the performance of Chandler Rodgers too is like, we don't know what the prep looked like all week. We don't know when Nando was going to be out. Do we, like, because Andy, you've been around the team and I've talked to coaches and staff and all that. Like, during the week, the starters are taking 80 to 90% of the walkthroughs and the snaps all week. So if Nando was doing that and Chandler was just taking the backup reps, yeah, of course, he's not going to have any other chemistry with the starting guys. Yeah, he's going to look like he just came in from the cold because that's exactly what happened. And it's the last game of the season. He's not going to find any rhythm in the last game of the season.
He's played legitimately like 0 games. Look, show me the backup that comes into a game running 2s all week and has a good game.
I can name one, but I don't want to do it just to help your point.
But like, I'll give another example. Curious where you're going with yours, because I wonder if it's the same one. But look, This was sub 24-hour notice. This was like morning of notice. Hey, Nando's not going to go. Chandler, you're in the game. Maybe even like sooner than that. Or I mean, like closer to game time. One of those game time decisions. I just think that, and then fine. Like let's look at Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson. Right,
That's a good one.
Brock Purdy gets hurt, and Josh Johnson comes in. Kyle Shanahan's offense, great offense, historically good offense, amazing skill position players all around you. How'd he look? And then he gets hurt. I mean, I don't know. Let's see, Brady?
No, mine was going to be Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Okay. Yes, it can happen.
It can happen. But that's exactly why you bring in a guy like Chandler Rogers.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I just think the stuff that you're seeing, and I also just want to talk to what you're talking about, because like I feel like you did more of a defense than is even necessary, but I appreciated understanding it, because what you're seeing Nando struggle with, I went back, a colleague of mine, Juanito, shout out to my buddy, was giving me a hard time about the Miami game because he was there with me, and so I was like, let's go back and look at the highlights, because he was trying to say one of our DBs made a bunch of errors, and I was making the case that wasn't. And so we went back and looked at a bunch of the highlights, and then so as he was going through it, he was like, "Yeah, dude, I had a bunch of issues with your quarterback." And he's like, look, he's like taking sacks left and right where he should be getting rid of the ball already. And he's like ducking his head down. And I'm like, dude, like exactly. That's the progression. That's where Nando needed to be pushed. And he still needed it. We saw it. It's not like you have this perfect option in Nando, and therefore the comparison is night and day and a god versus a human. Like it just isn't that. Like Nando has clear struggles. He struggled with understanding the pressure of the pocket several games throughout the year. And there's certainly games you could go back and say, hey, if you made this throw or that read or tucked the ball or made a decision faster, like maybe the outcome of the game has changed. So like you need somebody in there that's going to push you. Iron sharpens iron. Like, and A players want to be around A players. You don't sit around and say, hey, here you go. Here's the job. Here's $1 million. Sit around and do whatever you want. Like you bring in people around them to, up level everybody's game. And the expectation that Chandler Rogers, somebody that's been super successful at North Texas, is going to come into a game completely cold with no game plan, running the twos all week. I mean, good luck. And like, it just rarely happens. And there's a reason why, if you were to go back and look at that and say, how many times does a backup come into a game unexpectedly and ultimately had a really successful stat line? Like it just doesn't happen that often. Otherwise, like we'd be rotating quarterbacks like all the time. It's just not a core strategy. No one's going into the college football playoff saying, well, yeah, I think I'm gonna, roll with my first guy, and if he doesn't have it, then I'll roll with the second. Like look at what happened in the Georgia game. Carson Beck goes down. Their offense looked, very, very pedestrian, and imagine the talent they have. Like I don't know. It's just to me, it's pretty harsh. And again, when you're in the building and you're watching the competition, totally different than when you're watching a random game on television.
People seem to have short memory. Remember Devin Modster stepping in to play at Autzen?
I couldn't wait, man.
You were so happy. You were so happy.
Look, my lack of loyalty to Chase Garbers is something that maybe one day I'll atone for, but I think I did on one podcast. But there's a lot of I need to go and have a session with a Catholic priest, and
I'm just gonna make sure, like on your deathbed, I'm gonna be there at the side, and I'm gonna make sure the one person that comes to see you is Chase Garbers, and your last words are gonna be apologize. I'm sorry for the 2019 season. Those are your last words. I should have believed in you, Chase.
I should have believed in you, Chase. Oh my gosh.
So good. So good. All right. We'll move on. Eat Your Broccoli is commenting on that question we just talked about, which is you must not remember Brandon McElwain or Joe Ayub.
Joe Ayub is a legend who gave me the best beer tasting of all time. So there will be zero Joe Ayub slander allowed on the Bearcast.
Okay, we only got a couple more. All right, from N. How does Cal improve? Which coaches need replacing? Do we need a GM? Sonny Dykes made a dig at Cal on how he didn't receive institutional support to succeed. Are those same issues preventing Wilcox from succeeding? Even if we hire a new coach, would the results be the same? There's like stuff to talk about here that's going to take way too long. Let's just do like one-liners for each.
Is this like
thing.
new Sonny stuff or old Sonny stuff? Sonny's going to become completely irrelevant, right?
Yeah, Sonny's become completely irrelevant, but I guess he's just talking about like his digs at the university just overall.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Sonny's the same dude that said Cal's a sleeping giant. Mark Madsen came in and said Cal's a sleeping giant. I fundamentally think that everybody understands the opportunity that exists, and some can make it happen and some can't. And yeah, he might be salty about it, but like, I don't know.
Andy and I were sitting in that presser when he threw all of his players under the bus by saying he needed better athletes for his team to tackle better.
Yeah, and it was at that point in time I was like, all right.
Moving on.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah,
I don't think we think that it's preventing Wilcox to a degree, but we haven't seen it as much. I mean, when he's gone and asked for assistance to get more money, we've given more money. I think that academic requirements, like we just haven't heard as much about it.
Yeah. Here's the one point I will give to Wilcox. I think because of the institution that he is at, we are always behind the ball instead of ahead of it. Mm-hmm. And we're always reacting to things instead of being proactive. And in that, what I mean by that is our assistant pool was one of the lowest, right, in terms of being competitive in the college football landscape at the time. So we're reacting to it. And when Wilcox got those extensions, we made the assistant pools bigger to be competitive with the modern college landscape. The moment that happened is when the transfer portal and then NIL starts to kick in. And then we have to develop this collective and pool all this money together to be competitive there. That took a couple years. And now we're starting to see that we're competitive in the NIL market. So like, it's not that the institutional support isn't there. It's just that because of it being a public university and a state school and all of X, Y, and Z, it just takes us longer to be able to activate the things necessary to be able to support him. So, yeah, that's how I feel on that.
Well said.
Yeah. All right. I hope that answers all of it, but if not,
wait! Don't skip
what?
over that.
What? Which one? This?
Look at that.
Yeah. So all of your like Spotify, Wrapped stuff, starts to get sent out. I actually got our official one from the podcast, just for Spotify. We increased our listenership by I think about 50%. We had like a 38% increase in follows. And then also 27 people, this is the crazy part, 27 people have us as their number one most listened podcast.
That's crazy.
There are 27 people out there who listen to us more than like Eat Your Broccoli listens to us more than the Bill Simmons podcast. It's unreal. It's unreal.
That's amazing. That's so damn cool.
That's crazy, huh? Yeah. So, thanks, Eat Your Broccoli. You're the real MVP. This is a Cal basketball player tweeting at us about a football recruit. I don't know how this makes sense, but it does, I guess. Maybe he's friends with him or something. I don't know. All right, here we go. Scotty says, thoughts on the Harsin hire, excited or disappointed? We actually went over that in the previous podcast, so you can go back and listen to that. With our limited NIL resource and constant transfer portal movement, what positions would you prioritize with high school versus transfer reporting? Actually, that's a really good question. And then odds that Ott stays for one more year. All right, so we'll start. 3 is easy. If you were to give a percentage, Andy, what percentage would you give? He stays X percent, he leaves X percent.
7% stay.
7%? Like just straight up single digit 7?
Yeah.
And 93% leave?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic. I'm going to put it at like 60-40. 60 leaves, 40 stays.
I would be shocked. But crazier things have happened.
Crazier things have happened. But yeah, let's talk about the second question. With our limited NIL resource and the constant transfer portal movement, what positions would you prioritize with high school versus transfer recruiting?
Yeah, it's a good question. So since when has our NIL resource had the adjective of being limited?
People think it is, but then
But
that's all because the NIL numbers aren't out there.
So it's just kind of hearsay.
It's just kind of, I mean, they're just assuming A, university poor equals B, NIL also poor.
Okay. What high school positions basically would you want to have more of a
I know my answer.
development? Okay, you go first.
I think offensive line.
You'd rather have high school?
No, I would
offensive
rather have
line?
transfer recruiting than high school.
Okay.
Because transfer means that they've had at least 1 year or X years of college like strength and conditioning. And if they're transferring, that means they haven't played at the university that they're at, right? Or they're looking for an opportunity up, much like a TJ Sessions, to go from an FCS to an FBS school.
Yeah.
So that's the type of guy I would want who would want that chip on their shoulder, but already has a body developed where if we bring them in, there is a chance for them to play right away.
I think high school, like defensively, I also think it's almost like skill positions. Running back, I'd go high school for running back. I'd go high school for, K, like the K types. Like we've done really well at developing good linebackers. Obviously, Teddy coming in as transfer and Jackson Sermon coming in as a transfer. I understand that, but we've also had a really good development pipeline from defense and then also DBs. So I think like getting those wins there, like this year's an exception. Marcus Harris, Noel Williams, right? But I think in the past, and like you look at our safety, Craig, I think there's just been Cam Sidney. There's been guys that have come up through the ranks. Obviously, our trio: Ashton Davis, Cam Bynum,
the OG takers,
Jalen. Like we had, but that was a little bit of a different era. Yeah, I think that's where I would really look high school, and then I don't know. I mean, D line. I'm kind of saying like interior, like trenches. If you're trenches, portal.
Yeah.
I'm putting all my money in the trenches, and then everything else. I think QB too. Like, it's hard because on the one hand, we lose a QB commit, and I'm like, it's devastating. And the flip side is everyone says, well, we can get him next year, right? It's like boomerang. So, but I think if I were to prioritize anything, what an interesting trend was brought up on the radio today by good old Mark Willard, who I enjoy very much. And what Mark said is that the NFL is becoming slow to realize that the wide receiver position is becoming like running back, where the big contracts that are being handed out to wide receivers are looking bad. And he used a couple of examples. He used the example, of course, Brandon Ayuk. And then he also used Justin Jefferson in comparison with Jordan Addison. A tough one, right? Justin Jefferson, it's like the second coming of Randy Moss, but in a very different way. So, okay, I take that. CD, right? Looking at a big contract there. And I was like, okay. And then they brought up Jamar Chase, who I think is very much the exception to this point, especially after the game tonight. And they brought up Amon-Ra, who's been used less with Jameson Williams still healthy. He's been used a little bit less. So it got me thinking to what we were talking about before, which is like we committed a ton of money to running back. And if I were to do it over again, I wouldn't do that because we've seen now we're going to have as great of a talent as humanly possible at running back. But if you don't have the line, it doesn't mean jack shit. But I also think some of that's on our offensive staff to be able to scheme around our deficiencies. So that's the piece that I go back to is like, you can have the best skill position player in the world. But if you don't have the talent where you need it, to give the quarterback time to create holes, to create lanes, then it's not really worth anything. So to me, it all the portal and NIL in the transfer portal all really comes from what you talked about, it being based on the line. And it also, the points that Willard made me think like, yeah, I do see there's a world in which, you could have 3-4 wide receivers at the skill position that don't require, a massive bag, so to speak, to show up on campus. There's always going to be these amazing wide receivers that are worth that can do things. But, I think as much as I'm looking at it, it's like, you want to make sure, what did we miss this year? We missed the guy that could take the top off. That was a huge issue for us all season long. So for me, I would reserve some funds, or maybe you say, hey, we have those guys, they were just hurt, but some funds to guarantee that you have that element. You got to make sure you have somebody in the slot that can be your possession receiver, tight end. But I don't know if, I think like Jack Endries is a good example. You can bring a tight end in, and Jack Endries versus Corey Dyche, just two different angles there, and I think two very similar outputs, with Endries having the edge. So yeah, all that to say, I really think it starts with D-line and O-line when it comes to the portal. And then from there, maybe you branch out to skill position. But if I had it my way, 95% of my budget would go to the trenches when it comes to the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I mean, my thing is like, you don't want to, just from even a technique teaching standpoint, you don't want to overwhelm high school kids. So if you can get high school kids that you can just teach them one thing, this is the one thing you're going to be working on all season long, which is why for me, and Jesse, I know, disagrees with me, and I lean on him on the coaching aspect stuff of it. But like defensive end is just like you're in on this down to just go after the quarterback. Like that's your one job. You don't have to worry about setting the edge, the schemes around it, but it's just like your job is to just be a heat-seeking missile to the quarterback, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about anything else. I think that's why it's easier to get in defensive ends at high school. But inside the line, offensive line, a lot of the more technique-based positions, definitely so. But yeah, I think
Good question.
I think you said it best. Yep. I think that's it. So I think we're good. That's all the tweets.
You don't want to touch the last one with the 10-foot pole. Huh?
I don't want to touch that one. You're like,
no. Andy's already said too many spicy things.
Andy's already said too many spicy things. I do not want to veer into that territory whatsoever.
It was a comment about a potential offensive coordinator relating to a date political in January. And yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, as I said, that one's pretty hard to touch. Like, I'm not out here being like, yeah, let's forgive the Capitol Stormers. But I'm living in an era where I'm trying to I just want us to win. And so if we have to bring in somebody that doesn't align with me 100% in how I see the world, but can make our team better, bring that person in. And I hate to say this, but the freaking defensive end on the 49ers,
That one guy
has been pretty vocal about his support and things that I happen to disagree with him on 100%. So, and it's made it much harder for me to root for him. But at the end of the day,
it is funny though, right? He does the dance, and then that's when the losing streak started. I think just that coincidence, I think, is absolutely hilarious.
You're not helping.
I know. I just think it's funny. That's what happens.
It's just one of those things. It's harder in baseball because I feel like so many of the baseball players that we love just grew up in the middle of nowhere, going to the middle of nowhere, playing baseball in the middle of nowhere. It's just baseball is so it's just one of the Buster Poseys of this world are very rare.
Yeah.
In the baseball world, so that's just one of those where no one really talks about it. And it's those silent things, and yeah. Anyways, I just think that we got to move past this era of being outraged because your algorithm doesn't get along with somebody else's algorithm. Just who cares? Bring me a coach that's going to help us win. If we get 9 wins, I really, outside of you going and actually storming the Capitol, as long as you're not really imposing against like literally human rights and people's rights to be themselves and feel comfortable, then I would rather just us go and get 9 wins.
Yeah, I didn't want to touch this tweet, but Andy apparently did. So there we go. We talked about it.
I didn't think we were going to get canceled for that one.
I was like, I just want to move on. I don't even want to talk about this one.
I thought it was fine. I mean, not the tweet, but like, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe we'll have to pull this episode down.
Yeah, but that's it. That's all it is for the Right for Cal. No, not the Right for Cal. Sorry, I'm everywhere right now because I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's just
Rob, you've been canceled by association.
Dude, I know. This
has
sucks.
been the Bearcast. You found us. If you know, if you're listening to us after this podcast, we haven't been canceled, but who knows? If Rob isn't on the field at SoFi, then he's been canceled.
Oh, this is.
Can people even be canceled anymore? I don't even think they can.
I think they can. I think they still can. There's a select few that still can. I think we're one of the select few.
It's just P. Diddy. It's just P. Diddy.
Oh my God. No, we're not talking about that either. We're just not veering into any of that territory whatsoever. All right. Some things to look forward to. If you're listening to this, let's say it usually goes up on Thursday or Friday. So the bowl game's next week. Men's basketball plays against San Diego State next Saturday. I believe they have a game. Well, they have a game. We're recording this on Monday. They have a game on Tuesday. The women's also play Stanford on Friday, so that's also a good one to go to. The women are currently only have one loss on the season. The AP poll came out for women's basketball, and they're sitting at 28th. So, and Stanford, without Tara Vanderveer, like they don't look like the untouchables like they did in the past. So we shall see what comes of that. But yeah, there's a bunch of Cal things to go to this week. So I hope people make it out. And then from my end, I had the chance to record and help videotape Jeremiah Wilkinson's workout with a private trainer today. And then made an Instagram reel for them. And it's up. It's on my Instagram page. It's on Jeremiah Wilkinson's Instagram page. Go take a look at that for me. It helps a lot. So they have definitely a lot more follows than I have. So it's crazy, like coming back into my Instagram account and then looking at my notifications because it's a collab post. So if you like it on any other pages, it shows up on mine. I like come in, it's like 350 likes. Like, what the heck is going on? This is clearly not my account. But it was super cool seeing it work out and just getting some of that footage and seeing how much work goes into being an NCAA athlete at 8:30 in the morning before class, like coming in for a 1 hour workout with a private trainer. And right as we were leaving, like Madi Sissoko is like walking in to do his own little workout by himself. So these guys are training hard mid-season too, and they have a game tomorrow. So come out and support the guys. It's a fun time. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Andy? We're good? All right. That wraps it up for us here on the Golden Bearcast. We'll be back after the bowl game next week against UNLV. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears. You've got mail.
There you go. A little deep. A little too deep.
You've got mail.
That's better.
You've got mail.
That's a little too high. You got to drop it an octave.
You've got mail.
Oh my God. That's Mickey Mouse.
You've got mail. Welcome to Disneyland.
Oh my God.
All right. Here we go. Remarking. 3, 2, 1.